Welcome to Voices,
a podcast from the Institute for Human Rights and Business.
Here, we're seeking to elevate the range of perspectives
on the role of business in the world
and in people's everyday lives.
Hello, everybody. This is Salil Tripathi for the Institute for Human Rights and Business. And at the Voluntary Principles plenary in Toronto, I have the great fortune of meeting my old friend Egbert Wesselink, who's a senior advisor at PAX, which is a Dutch organization but operates globally to promote peace and human rights. First of all, thanks very much, Egbert, for joining us today.
Well, nice seeing you again, Salil.
Yeah. So my first question is really about a case that has gripped your mind for many years, and I've also been watching it for a long time, which is a case that involved the Swedish oil company Lundin and its operations in Sudan. Tell us what happened last year.
Well, on the 11th of November, the public prosecution of Sweden formally indicted the chairman of the board, Mr. Ian Lundin, also representative of the family that owns about a third of the company and completely controls it. And there was a second indictment against another suspect, former CEO and currently one of the directors, Mr. Alex Schneider, both residents of Switzerland. And they're charged with complicity in grave war crimes. If you read the list of the crimes, it's pretty hideous. It's almost a complete list of all war crimes at a massive scale committed by the Sudanese armed forces and the militia, and according to the indictment, at the request of the suspects. There's a very interesting second dimension to the indictment, which is that the public prosecutor also requests in the indictment the court to declare the entire operation of Lundin in South Sudan, which over a time span of 5 years, a criminal enterprise, and forfeit all benefits, which are calculated at a total of $150 million. So you can clearly see by the choice of the suspects and the choice to also forfeit the benefits, criminal benefits, the public prosecutor makes clear that it's the company itself that's also standing in the dock, and even forces the company to actually defend itself in court. So there are 3 legal teams in court, one for each suspect, and one for the company. And it's a major breakthrough. I mean, it is the first time, I would say, since Nuremberg that someone is actually indicted for complicity in such grave crimes committed entirely on behalf of and in the interest of a large listed company. I mean, it's an 11-12 billion dollar company.
Now, the threshold for evidence in cases like this, complicity, tends to be different and high and strong. And you have been working on this for at least 20 years. I remember when I was at Amnesty International, we prepared a report on Sudan, which was, I think, also in early 2000s. So it's a very old story, and the conflict goes into the 1990s.
Yes.
So in terms of remedy or justice for the victims, it has been a long time coming. So what are the lessons for it? Do we need some kind of a more effective tribunal? Do we need a corporate crime sort of a court system? Because these are, as you said, after Nuremberg, this is the first major case. It has taken almost forever a generation has passed in that time.
Yes, it is. Of course, it has taken a long time. The suspects even appealed to court in Sweden, saying that their own human rights were violated because of the violation of Article 6 of the European Convention on Human Rights, which says there must be a reasonable time span between suspicion and the court case, which is, of course, 50% of why it took so long is because the company itself defends itself extremely aggressively. They took any opportunity to appeal, to claim, to go to court, to the ombudsman, to ask for more information, to request meeting with the exhausting in public prosecution, deliberately so. But otherwise, the case itself is by itself, of course, complicated. The reasons that the public prosecutor gives why it's taking so long is he can't access the country to start with. So he can't investigate the scene of crime, can't interview primary perpetrators. And then we're talking about crimes committed over a long span of time in the long Second World War. So that all very complicated. So in a way, things are a bit inherent to the kind and the scale of the crimes. But there's also, from a human rights perspective, I completely understand that we have to protect suspects against the powers of the state. But if a suspect can use the enormous deep pockets of companies to hire as many lawyers, including I don't know how many university professors, the top lawyers in the world, to defend themselves as aggressively as possible, there's another disbalance.
Yes.
Basically, the legal power and the legal brain power of the prosecution is lower than the defense.
No, that imbalance is genuinely a problem, and I think what's also stymied is the evidence gathering. That, as you said, is another major challenge when companies have to be prosecuted in this manner. And companies have the right to defend themselves. But the question is how they go about doing it, and are they trying to do something as a delaying tactic where the procedure and the process becomes a punishment?
Which is exactly what they're doing. And there's another big issue. Lundin Energy officially, of course, they endorse all the business human rights instruments, like OSD, UN Guiding Principles, etc. But at the same time, I would argue that if you claim you respect and promote human rights, then that should have a consequence for your legal strategy.
Right.
That in your legal strategy, you should balance the interest of the suspect and the company with that of the victims. They also have rights.
Yeah.
That's clearly not what they're doing. De facto, I would say that they are contributing to ongoing violation of very fundamental rights of hundreds of thousands of victims to access justice and their right to effective remedy by their extremely aggressive legal strategy. But of course, this is a conversation that's very hard to have with a company.
Yeah, so what are the lessons you think we have for companies from this? What should they do? Because these kinds of accusations are not unique. They happen to other companies also.
Yes.
They may be strong, they may be weak, the evidence may be good, the evidence may be poor, some of the complaints may be genuine, some could be spurious.
Yeah, well, I would say act less as a legal entity and more as if you're a kind of a human being,
right?
As a moral entity. The Lundin Energy is right from the start. They dug themselves in. They were advised by their own lawyers, no one else. Well, lawyers can only fight. They cannot reconcile. That's not what they've been trained for. That's not what they know how to do. They can only fight and escalate, etc. If so, one lesson to a company, I would say, is if Lundin Energy in 2005, when peace was signed in Sudan, and they had already almost left the country, but certainly left this bloc, when then they would have gone to these communities and said, "We're terribly sorry. Stuff went wrong. You suffered terribly. Let's not talk about guilt, but what can I do for you?" Yeah. They wouldn't have been where they're now. Because why did Parks write a report in 2010 and brought it to a public prosecutor? Because Lundin was in denial. They said we'd done nothing wrong. We were a force for peace and prosperity, which is a blatant lie. And that's it. They didn't pick up the phone. And so people got angry. Everybody in South Sudan those days, not anymore now, but anyway, was kind of in a new phase, reconcile mood, but they could not. It is so. I think that this corporate stuff that of course, a corporation is primarily a legal entity, but that doesn't mean that you should act as one that is kind of as an entity that's only focused on its petty self-interest and basically financial interest. In the end, you shoot yourself in the foot. Well, you should at least, and that's what we're trying to ensure that. On the other hand, they might get away with it. Not so much as suspects. In a way, they're already punished. In a way, of course, the indictment is already trying for the victims, except that victims need more satisfaction. If truth is spoken in court, that's already big satisfaction. The recognition of their harm and suffering is a huge satisfaction.
Right.
But of course, you also want to be able to restart your life, right? There's also a financial, economic, material aspect to remedy and to reconciliation. And now, what did Lundin do 5-6 weeks after the indictment? So after that, they basically gave up on their strategy to delay and frustrate the entire court case. They announced that Aker BP would acquire all their Norwegian oil and gas assets, which is 97% of the company's value. So basically, to protect the shareholders and the family against the negative impact of reputation-wise and financial-wise, etc., of the court case, they're stripping the company, Aker BP, and I very strongly, I think Mr. Kjell Inge Røkke, the richest person in Norway, is to blame very much personally for, I would say, his diabolic role here. And the same Murray Aachesklus, who's the CFO of BP, same thing. They pushed through this deal, whereby and agreed to it. Because it's beneficial for their oil assets that Lundin Energy will be stripped of its assets. They go to Aker BP, and the remainder of Lundin Energy, that'll change its name also, they're just trying to disappear, will keep all liabilities of the trial. Basically meaning that in case of a conviction, even in case of a conviction, there's no money left to do anything for the victim. So I find this so criminal.
Yeah.
And this is a criminal mindset. Right? This is no longer kind of...
But this again goes back to what you were talking about, lawyers devising strategies because they only know how to fight and protect the interest of their client. Yeah. So the other example, as you know, I was born in India. Yeah. And in India had that infamous instance in 1984 of the Bhopal gas disaster, when Union Carbide had the accident and thousands of people died. Now, when Dow Chemicals acquired Union Carbide, they bought all the global assets of Union Carbide except the ones in India. Right. And that Indian company was hived off and sold to a company owned by the West Bengal government at that time. Yeah. Now, what it did was that it insulated Dow Chemicals from any potential liability that Carbide have. Now, that may be a very sound legal strategy because, Dow Chemical was nowhere on the picture. Right. When the disaster occurred. Yeah. But by doing this, they made the effect of it was an insurmountable hurdle for the victims to secure justice from what remained of the company. And I think there is this pattern seems to be repeating itself. And I think there is need for corporate lawyers to look into their consciences. Is this the way they want to?
Well, I think we need laws to prevent it.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, this is. We had a discussion with the CEO of Aker BP about this concern, and at the end of the meeting he said, "Oh, that was really interesting. We learned a lot, and your perception of these victims of the crimes is really interesting for us." What?
Yes.
You signed up to all the human rights instruments, and you deal with a company that's been indicted for war crimes, and the perception that there are victims did not occur to you.
Yeah.
And that is unfortunately the truth. I've been speaking with analysts and financial institutions who are investing, and they have the same thing. They said, "Oh, of course, the investors should be protected." It's like, why? Why not protect the victims?
Yes,
right?
yes.
Well, because they're poor.
Yes, and they like power.
Exactly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you. I know this case will keep you busy, and
there will be justice.
Yeah. Of course.
Already justice done to some, and of course we want full justice to be done, and it's a matter of time. But we will prevail. I'm sure.
Yeah, no, absolutely you will. May the force be with you, as it says in the Star Wars movie, and all solidarity and support to your work.
Thank you, Salil.
Thank you so much, Egbert.
All the best.